Good evening or good afternoon, whenever you're looking at this. And it's great to see you again, even though I can't. Tonight, I'm introducing a film that I have a great deal of fondness for. It is a film by Julie Dash, and the film basically nobody's ever seen it. Anybody that I know, I keep asking them, "Oh, have you seen this film?" And they're not very familiar with it. I think it sort of is like an example of a really good film that is so unusual that it cannot get through the proper channels. You can see it now. You can look at it with your friends on the Criterion channel, but it took a long time to get there. And in fact, it took a long time for Julie Dash to be able to make it. You Now that we're in the throes of Black Lives Matter uh, and the Me Too movements, it's so much more. It's not easier, but of course we have so many examples of new black filmmakers, new women filmmakers. This is all something that we kind of expect as a result of all of our efforts to try to maybe make life a bit fairer in America. But you've got to realize, even 20 years ago, that 15, 25, 30 years ago, this still was not possible. Women did not make very many films, and certainly black women did not. And Julie Dash is one of the very first, one of the pioneers of black filmmakers that just persisted. She kept up, she worked really hard, she tried to find money everywhere for this film. And it took her, a decade to be able to facilitate that. Now, once she found the money, by that time, she knew that even the small amount of money that she got, she had to make extraordinary use of. So we have a film that is set in the Sea Islands off the coast of the southern states, off of Georgia. And I am sure that the majority of you have never heard of the Sea Islands. And in fact, what I love about this film is that it's going to show you a kind of history of America that you really aren't familiar with, and that basically it is a wonder to learn about. I think that that's one of the great joys of filmmaking, is that it can introduce you to so many areas of life that you can't live yourself. And especially the past is one of those areas. This film takes place at the beginning of the century. This is the 19th, the 8th, sorry, even I am lost in time, as well as this film that is in the end of the 1900s. So it takes place in a place that nobody knows about. And it's interesting, the history of the Sea Islands. The Sea Islands, they're off the coast and they go on for almost 100 miles. That's really impressive. And they're more can be described as shoals, maybe small islands, but the larger islands usually had a plantation on them. And so these plantations dotted those islands. But at the very beginning of the Civil War, maybe a year into it, the people that owned those plantations became very alarmed. They thought that perhaps there were going to be ships that would invade and that they would be endangered, and so they all fled to the mainland. But many of them left their slaves behind. And that situation is so unusual during the war. The people in the Sea Islands were the very first black people that were freed by soldiers, and they were also left to their own means, to survive. So you have about 40 years before this film happens, in which people had formed their families, they had formed ways that they could make a living, they had made their own food, they basically developed an entire society, and they even had their own language. That language is a mixture of the original language that comes from Africa, and of course a lot of English words that became a kind of patois that sort of fed the way that people communicated in that time. This is an American story, I have to remind everybody. people keep talking about Black stories, but I myself believe all Black stories are American stories, and that you need to know things about your country that you haven't learned before, and that's one of the wonderful things that you'll do during this film. That said, this film's going to be difficult for you. One of the ways it's difficult is the language. The filmmaker's very serious about keeping the nature of the patois that developed in this part of the South. And so you're going to be confronted with it, and I think for the first maybe 10 minutes of the film, you're just going to be struggling to try to understand what people are saying. That's one of the big challenges, and just have patience. Keep trying to figure out what they're saying, and you're also going to have no help knowing what their relationships are. You don't know what is their relationship? Is he her son, or is he her grandson? Is this person, are they married? Are they in the same family? And then you learn at a certain point is that everybody in this film is in the same family. The family is very large, and it's been in this place for 40 years, and these people have lived with each other for all that time. You're also going to have to be patient, and it's a bit like it's like a murder mystery or something. You're going to have to figure out what are these relationships of the people in the film, and basically how do they relate to the idea that some of them are leaving. So everybody's come to say goodbye, and the people that are leaving are going to leave to go to the north. It seems very far away, which is Nova Scotia indeed, and basically they're never going to see their relatives again, probably. And so it's a film about a farewell that I would love to see you, I'd love to hear what you say about our film last week, The Farewell, in sense of relating to this film. I think that everything else about the film is highly unique. The performances are excellent. And I think also it's an interesting view of a matriarchy, not a patriarchy. You have our white American families are often based on patriarchies. There's the father who is the head of the family, and he is a person that defines everything. In this film, the women are the heads of the families in everything I can figure out, because the men all take they're in the background. The women are all making decisions, and they were all basically led by a matriarch who is the central figure in this film. So I think all of those things I will leave you with, because I'm hoping that they will be a revelation to you, and that you will come. I sort of personally hope you'll come to love this film as much as I do, because I think it is so unique and is so vital about my own history of this country and yours. And I hope you enjoy it.